from Abuja.
Hello, thank you for being a part of our show. We appreciate you. I'm Magnus Kpakol, and this is Magnus Kpakol GVA. As always, it's all about how we can raise the level of living. That's what it's all about. In view today, a continuation of our discussion on how to end the ongoing Nigerian economic recession. And so, we continue from where we stopped last time with Professor Pat Utomi, a former presidential candidate and one of Nigeria's foremost economists. But before that, in our hidden economics, why people follow the money. Now, up next in our quick view, we rank countries by wealth based on per capita GDP using purchasing power parity. That's coming right up. Quite often, people make comparisons of national wealth on the basis of nominal gross domestic product, GDP. However, this does not quite reflect differences in the cost of living among countries. Consequently, more economists and analysts now use a purchasing power parity PPP GDP approach, as it is arguably more useful when comparing generalized differences in living standards between nations. In this connection, which of the following countries is not among the top 4 wealthiest countries in the world using purchasing power parity GDP? United States of America, Luxembourg, Singapore, and Qatar. Using GDP per capita at purchasing power parity, which of the following countries is not among the top 4 wealthiest countries in Africa? Equatorial Guinea, Seychelles, South Africa, and Gabon. Stay with us for our answers coming up shortly. Still in view, a continuation of our discussion with Professor Pat Utomi on how we got into the recession and the way out. But up next in our hidden economics, why people follow the money.
I say when money not take, people they carry me play. When money not take, everybody run away. When money not take, no. People they use me they play. Say when money not take, nobody look at my face.
Follow the money as a catchphrase became popularized by the 1976 drama documentary motion picture, All the President's Men. All the President's Men was a political thriller set against the backdrop of a political power struggle. It is a 1976 American film directed by Alan J. Kpakol. The screenplay by William Goldman is based on the 1974 non-fiction book All the President's Men by Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, the 2 journalists that investigated the Watergate scandal for the Washington Post. The film starred Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. Now Timaya, the great Timaya, has a new song titled Money, featuring Flavor, in which they sing about how people run when the money has finished. When money no day, people run away. Even girls begin to boss off.
When money no day, everybody a bubble some. I say when money no day, I got you the only.
So as it seems, that's what happens when you have money. People tend to come to you. But when you no longer have the money, people tend to go away. Why is that? What is the real economics going on here? Well, what is happening is this. That you have money is a signal to people that you have a huge amount of wealth. So in actuality, it is the large amount of wealth that you seem to have that is attracting the people? After all, wealth measures the value of all the assets of worth owned by a person, community, company, or country. So wealth is essentially the accumulation of resources. That a person has huge amounts of wealth signifies that he or she has a good network of people and facilities with money. So most people then see your money and believe that if they get closer to you, they could be a part of your network and have access to some of that wealth that you have. And that can make them money. Oh, and of course, they might also be able to weasel some of that raw cash from your hands. And that would be a good thing for them. But most of all, is that access to your wealth they are looking for. So when you seem to have money, people will come to you. But when money no day, people will run away. Our hidden economics for you.
When money not day, them they carry me play. When money not day, everybody run away. When money not day, na na na. Oh no no no, oh no no no, oh no no.
Before we start our discussion, here are our quick view answers. The United States is the country listed here, not among the top 4 wealthiest countries in the world. Qatar, a peninsular Arab country with Doha as its capital, and also known for its futuristic skyscrapers and other ultra-modern architecture, is the wealthiest country in the world, using purchasing power parity per capita GDP, which stood at $132,870 in 2015. South Africa, although the most sophisticated economy in sub-Saharan Africa, is not among the top 4 wealthiest countries in Africa, using purchasing power parity GDP. For comments, adverts, and sponsorship, please see our information displayed on the screen. As I said last time, the Nigerian economic recession has surprised many Nigerians. How did it happen? And what is the way out? We continue our discussion on this with Professor Pat Utomi, one of Nigeria's foremost economists. He is a management expert and professor of political economy at the Lagos Business School. A former presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress, he is the founder of the Center for Values and Leadership. Professor Utomi has served in senior positions in government as an advisor to the President of Nigeria and in the private sector as Chief Operating Officer for Volkswagen of Nigeria. Please join us in our continued discussion with Professor Pat Utomi.
So really, what I think Nigeria should be doing is not talking about sale of assets.
Yes.
What are those assets? And let's take Nigeria liquefied natural gas, LNG. LNG is probably the most profitable company in Africa. It pays to the government of Nigeria more dividends than we earn from I don't know what. And you want to sell off that and then not earn those dividends? In fact, the kind of amount of money I've been hearing that we should sell the thing for does not come up to 2 years dividends from LNG. So it's just doesn't make any sense at all to me, except it is an attempt to transfer.
Maybe there's a certain
cronies
person that wants it.
or persons or whatever. So I think that should be off the table. What we could do.
What about airports?
With airports, what we're talking about is efficiency, and we have to look at criteria. In fact, it comes to the point I was going to say about make about what we generally should do. The thought that I had was we should say around inefficient assets, say like airports, or even in the oil business. Let us get the world's leading players in this. Say it's something about trains or whatever. GE. who want a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, whatever is more comfortable contract with you, come and run this for us. Pay us so much over additional profit that you can make every year. Asset remains ours, gets appreciated because you are managing it.
Yes.
And then because you are managing it and it's an asset that anybody can trust, we can even borrow against it. We get the cash to inject into the economy.
Yes.
Economy booms, we pay back the borrowing, and we've got our assets appreciated.
Yeah.
I think that's more
absolutely.
reasonable.
But because the thing
about
you're
this.
looking for is efficiency. You're not looking to fund just this year's budget. I mean, that's been my problem is that, okay, you sell this stuff just to fund this year's budget. Okay, what about next year's budget?
Yeah.
What about down the road? So that's, I thought we should talk about that. But I wanted to also ask, it's a fundamental issue here to be looking at. Is it, can we look at the structure of the Nigerian economy, saying that maybe the structure has changed and taking us into more services in an area where perhaps we don't have good competitiveness? Is there something, because I'm kind of looking, the service sector has gotten much larger. Manufacturing is not growing that much. Oil has shrunk a little bit. Agriculture is shrinking. So are we now in an arena where we're not able to be competitive? Could that be something?
Yeah. Indeed, the word is competitiveness.
Yes.
Part of a problem that I had with the import substitution industrialization strategy as we tried to implement it, which was the reason I said a company like Volkswagen, the week I got there, I said if I had my way, I would shut it down, was we were not playing to our strengths in terms of competitiveness, which is really what matters.
Yes.
Now, what we should do, in my view, is look at our factor endowments. Thankfully, every part of Nigeria has some very strong endowments.
Yes.
And we take those factors, whether they're in agriculture, whether they're in solid minerals or whatever, and add value. And look at your value chains and aim to become dominant in global value chains of those endowments.
Yes.
And when we can manage to do that, then economy in terms of structure is diversified. If services is growing, fine, but it should not stop us from dealing with others. Nothing says that we cannot be growing the tourism sector while we are reinventing agriculture.
Yeah.
So the problems, real problems around the structure of our economy as a result of governments not being proactive. If we had more decentralized government, and that's why people are talking about restructuring, which was what we had in the 50s and the early 60s. In industrialization, for example, Western Nigeria was the first to go forward with the Ikeja industrial estate. Eastern Nigeria immediately responded with Aba and Port Harcourt, and Northern Nigeria responded with Kakuri, industrial estate in Kaduna, of course, Bompai in Kano, and everybody was growing in this competition between the regions.
So this competition that came from decentralization, is that the same thing as restructuring of Nigeria?
Yeah, restructuring Nigeria.
Is that the same thing as decentralization?
Yes.
In modern, in contemporary discussion.
Yes, that's what it is.
It's the same thing.
Yes. A principle of subsidiarity.
Which means what, politically?
Politically, it means devolving powers to the subnational governments.
The state, but the states, they have powers to do what? If they want to start their industry, they can now. I mean, what's holding them?
Two things have happened. Oil has created this dependence, a prebendal culture in which they come to Abuja to get their share of their national cake. Second, the political process has been terrible. And so many people who get elected governors can't run households, but they run states.
Well, there's a solution now based on something you have said, that in fact, you said the decline in oil prices is probably a blessing to Nigeria. So that way, this low price, those low oil prices is a good thing for Nigeria, as people would then have to go back home to see what they can do.
Absolutely.
Do you still hold on to that?
Absolutely. People will find out Nigeria is actually really a rich country, but not rich on oil. I go back to the example we were giving of import substitution industrialization.
You please talk about, because we were talking earlier before the show about your experience at Volkswagen. Yeah. You told a compelling story. If you can link that here, because that would be
when I meet illiterates who are looking for some way to insult me, they can't find one. They say, but you ran Volkswagen and you ran into the ground. Oh God, country will save us. God will save us from illiterates. The day I got to Volkswagen, I looked at the place and I thought, my goodness, I would like to shut this place down. And I wrote a piece on it, which appeared in a magazine published by Luca when I called This Week magazine. So, you know, these things can't compete. They're not working. What we should do is take the fact that we've entered that industry, look at what components exist in the car, look at the ones in which our endowments are strong, and then essentially become leading competitive manufacturers of those components, supplying the global value chains of those car manufacturers.
Absolutely.
I mean, my German friends said, my goodness. In fact, I can quote exactly what a guy, Dr. Peter Frack, on the board of, he turned to the managing director because it was almost an all-German executive committee and said something in German. And later the guy said to me, didn't they say that there are no clever people in Nigeria?
Yeah.
But he then said, look, you're right.
Yes.
But your government is not serious. If we try to depend on Nigeria to supply our components, one day there'll be a coup and borders are blocked. You know, but that's a simple one of the size statements people can make.
Yeah.
But what I suggested, my favorite endowment at the time, yield per hectare for rubber, the best in the world was Nigeria. So convert most of southern Nigeria into rubber plantations.
Yeah.
Build factories owned by Volkswagen, owned by Daimler-Benz or whoever, that take 1, 2, 3, 4 rubber components and make the best in the world, most price competitive, most high quality of such components, and export to global offerings in the motor industry. You know, when I said that, people say, this man doesn't want Nigeria to own a Nigerian car. And people insulted me, and I'm so used to being insulted in Nigeria, insulted me roundly. The director of the Center for African Economies at Oxford at the time, Paul Collier, read some of that stuff and decided to come and interview me. He did. As it turned out, 25 years later, you need to ask Paul Collier to study China's dramatic rise in manufacturing and what Africa can learn from it. And Collier, after studying, found one great example. One local government produced more than 70% of all the buttons worn on the planet Earth.
70%?
Yeah. One local government, not all of China, one local government.
Extraordinary.
And he said, this is what Patrick Tommy suggested his country should do.
Yes.
25 years ago.
That is, when you told me that story, I said, that is just extraordinary. That's we can do it though. We can.
Of course. Even today, we can.
We can still do it.
You know, there are a number of value chains that we can dominate completely, create millions of quality jobs.
Yes.
Because in manufacturing, you create more quality jobs than you can create in some of these other things that we're struggling with. But unfortunately, we didn't focus on those as people left the farms to move into the non-tradable goods sectors, like working for Julius Berger to build this road that we're financing from oil money. They lost the capacity to work in those areas, and we lost out.
You ran for president. You're a former presidential candidate. What was that experience? But why did you do it? Did you think you were going to win, or you were demonstrating something?
No. The first time, I did not think I would win the election, but I did not think anybody could win the election if there was an election in 2007, because there was none.
Yes.
I would not score the highest. I didn't expect to score the highest.
Yeah.
But I figured that there would be a deadlock.
Yeah.
Because of Atiku Abubakar really taken out to East, somebody takes Southwest, and somebody take, intelligent people, youth would probably vote for me, and I might be 4th ranked or whatever, but then we need to go for round 2, and then people will begin to ask who can really run our country.
Yeah.
And we'll have compromises that would result in.
Can somebody like you win a presidential election in Nigeria? Do they want somebody like you?
Well, that's what some people say that they don't want, but they're suggesting that Nigerian people are so dumb
No,
that they don't know what's good for them.
Because they haven't done it so far.
Yeah, I know.
So, where are the examples of people like you that have been president?
Hey, but
in
Nigeria, errors that have thrown up some good people as governors.
Yeah.
That error can take place again, and you throw up somebody who knows what he's doing as president.
Yes.
And perhaps we can make some progress.
If you were president, we got this recession, what would you have done?
The most important thing to do is, like Mahathir did in Malaysia. Get everybody into the house. I say, what do we do? And get the best ideas to be manned by champions that the people believe in and trust and know they feel the people. And get that buy-in from the people, and we all march together. But the mindset of the class of 66 is a mindset of exclusion. They don't have an inclusion mindset. And that's what the problem has been. The first thing they do is get some people who will insult you to begin to insult you on Facebook and all of that. In fact, just before I was coming to the studio, somebody sent me a text. Oh, there's somebody on Facebook who said, this part will tell me again. You know, is he that fantastic? And I replied to the person, I said, first of all, I don't even begin to think I'm fantastic, not talk of being that fantastic. I'm just a simple citizen, a father, a professional who thinks that he has citizen duty to put his own little idea
Make your contribution
on the table.
Yes.
That's all I am.
Professor, on that note, I want to thank you so very much.
Great.
You are
pleasure.
wonderful. Extraordinary. Thank you very much. Today, if you look across Africa, there are not many countries where the job market is booming. In fact, among the top 10 countries in the world, in terms of unemployment, an astonishing 6 are in Africa. This is unacceptable. And indeed, sitting on top of this shameful list of the top 10 in the world is Zimbabwe, with an unemployment rate of 95%, according to the CIA. Across Africa, the real question is not whether a country is in outright recession. It is about how to create jobs and keep jobs. Many people are starting to wonder whether Africa is still rising. And even when there was serious optimism and perhaps euphoria about Africa rising, why didn't Africa create jobs? What we essentially had was massive jobless growth. Africans are wondering whether their leaders have handed them an uncashable promissory note. Certainly, the promise in the freedom from colonialism and the enthronement of democracy from military rule are but foul play if the people can't find decent, well-paying jobs. Across Africa and in Nigeria at this time, it appears governments have simply neglected their constituent local communities in infrastructure development and policy arrangements. And this had led to ineffective economic participation and weak job creation. As we have repeatedly stressed, a refined economic development in Africa model is one that emphasizes the need for the development of economically stronger African communities, where the people are actively involved in determining their own fate, thereby making national economic development the product of a network of competitive communities. If we don't do this, we are likely sowing the seeds for frequent recessions. I'm Magnus Kpakol, and that's my view.
Magnus,